Before we come to the text and some reflections on the text, I know there are a very few new faces here. I would like to inform them in 1 minute about the book we are trying to follow. I repeat what I have already told you, most of you. Sri Aurobindo came to Pondicherry in 1910 along with a few disciples who were his attendants as well as friends as well as disciples. But being a French colony, they did not have books in English language, and most of the books were available in French. Though Sri Aurobindo was well versed in French, they were not. It seems for them to read something and meditate upon the statement, Sri Aurobindo used to scribble these thoughts and aphorisms in a few notebooks. And he himself probably forgot about them. After his passing away, they were discovered, they were edited, they were published. And an aphorism is, as we all know, a precise statement containing much wisdom and which requires attention to understand them, and which is an opportunity also for us to meditate upon them. So we have already covered a few aphorisms. Today we come to aphorism 10 and 11. 10. What the soul sees and has experienced, that it knows. The rest is appearance, prejudice, and opinion. I repeat, what the soul sees and has experienced, that it knows. The rest is appearance, prejudice, and opinion. Second aphorism is, my soul knows that it is immortal, but you take a dead body to pieces and cry triumphantly, where is your soul and where is your immortality? Both the aphorisms remind us of the fact that all that we claim to be knowledge through our mental perception, through our understanding, cannot be considered to be true knowledge from the spiritual point of view, from the highest standpoint which is occupied by truth. From the truth's point of view, our experiences are mostly sometimes a distant echo of some truth, but often a jumble of prejudices, our limited capacity for seeing things, our relative to our depth of understanding, so on and so forth. And very difficult to rely upon these experiences as authentic. As somebody said, when I get the first-hand reports from 3 eyewitnesses to an accident, I start doubting the veracity of history. Which means, if 3 people who have seen an accident, when they give their accounts, they are so different from one another that all those which have been written on events which took place thousands of years ago, how can they be taken as exact or real? And there is definitely a condition when an experience can be taken as true, and that condition is when we perceive through our soul. Now we are all conscious of at least three aspects of our being. I know that I have a body. We all have our physical bodies, corporal bodies. I know that body I can see, but I do not see my mind. But still, since I am capable of thinking, I know that I have a mind. Since I am capable of feeling, getting impulses, desires, aspirations, and they are not quite the properties of mind or intelligence, but mostly belonging to another range of realities, I know that belongs to my life, what we call vital, the desires of my soul, the sphere of my, desires of my life, the scope which my feelings provide me. And so we know physical body is there, mind is there, and life is there. Life is often termed in our vocabulary as the vital. Vital is the field of all desires, all dreams, all our hopes, all our impulses, our passions, etc., etc. Now, but what about the soul? How do I know that there is a soul? I do not have any kind of direct introduction to it. I do not feel that here is something different from my mind and my vital, which I can call a soul. How do I go about it? How do I know it? Now, since times immemorial, particularly in Indian heritage of human quest, we find that there is an inborn faith that we have a fourth dimension to our personality, our being, which is soul. And mystics try to present it in a logical way. A simplest version of their way is like this. When I say I am standing, what do I mean by that I am standing? It is my physical body which is standing. My mind does not stand, my vital does not stand. When I say I am thinking, which I am referring to my mental personality. My mind thinks, my body does not think. When I say I am feeling, which again I know that it is the vital I, my emotional I identified with my passions, emotions, etc., which feels. But when I say my body, my mind, my life or my vital, who is claiming that to be his? Certainly there is a fourth faculty in me, a fourth element in me, which alone can keep all these things together, claim them to be his. And that is the soul. And if we really meditate upon this particular situation, we will see that each one of us is such a jamboree of conflicting ideas, conflicting thoughts, conflicting emotions that had there not been something very powerful which could keep them together, we would fall apart. What I call myself is a confused combination of something of my ego, something of my sanskaras, something of my prejudices, my feelings, my ideas, my education, etc., etc. But these things continuously keep on changing. My ideas and my preferences of 30 years ago are not mine any longer today. These things keep on changing, and there are conflicts always inside my own being, sometimes between my life force, my vital desires, and my mental preferences, sometimes two mental preferences fighting with each other. All these conflicts are sustained by something at the base, and that is the soul. And the quest for the soul has begun since the dawn of human awareness. Upanishads put it beautifully, the dialogue between Janaka and Yajnavalkya. The king is asking the Guru, the great master Yajnavalkya, what is it by which one can see? See here does not refer to only physical seeing, to knowledge, to be able to see the truth. What is it by which one can see? The answer is, one can see by the help of the sun. But, O sage, when the sun has set, what does one do? One can see by the light of the moon, the sage says. Again the king asks, when the sun has set and the moon is not there in the sky, how does one see? Again the sage says, in the dim light exuded by the stars. When the stars too are not visible, what does one do? By fire one sees. O sage, when the sun is set, moon and stars are not there, and the fire has been extinguished, how does one see? Last sentence of the dialogue, one sees by the light of one's soul. Ultimately, it is gradually leading from one physical object to another physical object, and ultimately to something which is supraphysical, and which alone can be the assurance of our capacity to see the right thing in the right perspective. The quest, you know the story of Nasiketa, don't you? Most of you know it, in a very, very crude way in which it is presented to us. I remind you, to refresh your memory, Nasiketa is a young child, very seeking, a questing young boy. His father, a rishi, is performing a yajna. And whatever he had in the course of this performance of the yajna, he is giving them away to other rishis and other guests. He had a worn out cow, that also he gives away. And suddenly the boy comes and asks the father, because the boy knows, I too belong to my father. I will come to the significance a few seconds later. And he asked the father, Father, whom did you give me away? The father does not say anything. When the boy repeats the question, second, third time, the father says, I give you away to Yama. Yama is the god of death. The story is presented in such a way, it will appear as though the father got angry with the boy and go to hell, something like that. In that spirit he said, I give you to the god of Yama. Upanishad would not record a dialogue if that is what it was, the meaning of the dialogue. This particular yajna which Vajasrava was performing, the rishi, it was meant to be, each yajna had a particular purpose. This yajna was designed to liberate him from all his attachments. So whatever he possessed, each object possessed is a sign of his attachment towards it. So everything he is giving away, including a worn out cow. The son knows, the wise son knows, my father is most attached to me. And if that attachment also is not broken, the yajna will not be ultimately fulfilled. The whole real purpose of the yajna would be defeated, or at least not be perfect. So he wants his father also to give up his attachment to him, and he says, whom did you give me away? When the father says, I give you to Yama, he is practically commissioning him to execute a project to carry on his research on the phenomenon that is death. Yama represents death, the mystery of death. He is giving him a scheme actually. And the story says, you see, all the stories are allegorical. The story says that once the father had uttered that I have given you to Yama, Nachiketa goes to the abode of Yama, but Yama was not present. So he waits for his return 3 days and 3 nights. Impressed by the boy's patience and perseverance, God of Death promises him 3 boons. After getting the boons for his father's peace and all that, the 3rd boon he asks him, he asks for the 3rd boon in this form: grant me the knowledge of mystery beyond death. 3 days and 3 nights he waited, means 3 days and 3 nights he was totally concentrating on this issue. And after that, the revelation came to him. Yama's answers are revelations. But Yama is not inclined to answer this 3rd question at all. He says, you ask for something tangible, something which will be useful to you: long life, youthful life, wealth, power, influence. And the boy quietly answers, all these things are meaningless for me. You have promised to give me 3 boons. You cannot back out. And you have to grant me the knowledge of what happens after death. And then God of Death has to explain to him that really what appears to be death is just a transition, nothing more than a transition. And what survives death may not be the body, may not be your particular formulation of thought process, may not be your feelings as they are at a certain stage of your personal evolution, but what survives the death is your essential self, the core of your being, the true yourself, which is the soul. So we find these answers and we find this quest for soul, a very, very age-old but still going strong question. What is it? What is it? How do I find it? We take it for granted that it is something which is so remote to my ideas and my understanding that I can never meet it. They are explaining, commenting upon this aphorism. The mother assures us, she tells us, it is there. It does not make a point of hiding itself. It is not that soul is deliberately keeping itself aloof from us. It does not play with you just to make things difficult. On the contrary, it makes great efforts to help you find it and to make itself hard. It is not only that we are trying to know our soul, if at all we try. Most of us, really speaking, take ourselves for granted, as we are, as the formulation of consciousness we possess, that there could be much more deeper than what we know as myself, as my consciousness. We are often not bothered about it. So, but those who are seeking for the soul, they should not be under the impression soul is hiding from them. They alone are seeking for it. Soul itself also wants to reveal itself. It does try to reveal itself. And why it does not? Only between your soul and your active consciousness, there are 2 characters who are in the habit of making a lot of noise. My soul is, imagine figuratively, my soul is deeper within somewhere, deep inside my heart. I am on the surface, but between the soul and the surface self, which I call myself generally, there are 2 characters. Who are these 2 characters? They make a lot of noise, the mind and the vital. And because they make a lot of noise, while the soul does not, or rather makes as little as possible, their noise prevents you from hearing the voice of the soul. So soul is also trying to reach my surface self, to tell me that I am there very much. But we do not try to listen to it, its voice. Once in a while, if you really analyze your life and some of the precious moments you've remembered of your life, you will see something which you did not know about yourself, something that existed within you but you did not know about it. You must have felt it. Should I give an experience from my personal life? So that it is not that I am trying to give you an autobiographical account, but to remind you that such incidents must have happened to you also. In your life also they must have occurred. I was born in a remote village, and beautiful place, but remote, far from the so-called civilization. In 1940s, early 40s, there was a terrible flood and cyclone in my area, northern Balasore of Orissa, bordering Bengal. The whole region was devastated. Famine followed, and epidemic followed. People were dying by thousands. In that solitude, in that helpless condition, my house was raided by dakus, bandits. And this was a notorious gang, notorious for their cruelty and for ruthless plundering of houses. Now for nights together, or rather months together, before these dakus raided my house, Second World War was going on at that time, and my house was on the sea. So we had been warned by the British government, colonial government of the time, that any moment Japanese may invade this shore and infiltrate into the land. As a child, little child of age 6 or 7, I had almost nightmares at night whenever there are some disturbances, sounds from the sea. Have the Japanese arrived? And when I saw my house surrounded, very powerful searchlights are focused by them to make us nervous, and they are trying to break open the doors. I thought Japanese have come. And then when they entered the house, they took my father a prisoner, and my mother just threw everything that she had towards them, the bunch of keys and everything. And within a few minutes, they swept clean all that we had. At that moment, when they're threatening my father with a dagger, all the days and days of fears, nights of fears, I suddenly see they vanished. Even at that moment I wondered, how did it happen? At that moment I realized that there is a secret reserve somewhere deep within each human being, a reserve of faith, a reserve of courage, which at a moment of crisis comes out. The other day a friend was telling me, she had undergone a very vital surgery. He was telling me, I was afraid of surgery, but I don't know what happened. That day, I just felt everybody to be angels around me, doctors, nurses, anesthetists, all. Now that is the signal from the soul, the reserve which is there within, and that is the element which soul radiates. In a moment of crisis, when I develop some kind of courage, some kind of faith. Soon after this experience, I remember in my high school days, I became an atheist, complete atheist. And when in 1955, or 56, early 56, I was taking a flight to Indonesia. There was an Afro-Asian Students' Conference. I was representing my country. And in those days, aviation was not as developed as today. And over the Indian Ocean, a terrible cyclone broke out. And there was no Indian airline, there was no jet, all these things were not there, only British Airlines. And this double-decker British plane, it was like a bullock cart it was behaving. Terrible cyclone, and I do not know the technical language, but it is called a sphere of lightning, into which if a plane falls, it gets burnt out or something happens to it. and our plane had fallen into it. Afterwards, the pilot explained to us when we landed at Bangkok. And that moment I remember still, the gloomy situation when the plane is unpredictably behaving and all the air hostesses are drawing very long faces and somebody is making a cross, somebody has brought out his tiny Bible and reading it, somebody has brought out a Gita and reading it. I was near the window. I looked at them and I found I am the only person who cannot pray because I had no God to pray. I was a complete unbeliever, an atheist. And I looked through the window at the ocean. Through the clouds, I could see glimpses of the green vastness. I do not know. I cannot explain. I cannot really translate my ideas into language. But at the very moment, I had a feeling. I am saying this because many of you must have had such feelings at such moments, only our memory does not record them because it does not take them to be something of great importance. They are as if transitory things. But at that very moment, that reserve which I had at that moment, I had felt that moment when Dakus surrounded us. And once again, second time, when the Dakus had come, and they were about to break and kill my mother and myself, my mother advised me, my boy, pray. And I had very clearly told the deity that between your intervention and our death, there is no other alternative. Either we intervene or we die. A tremendous faith came into my heart that we are not going to be killed by these rowdies, these ruffians. Next moment, they fled. One more blow on the door, and the door would have broken, and we would have been killed. At least 6 or 7 years of age. And when I was in my early 20s, when I was in that flight, that particular faith came back to me when I was looking to the vastness under the plane, the blue ocean, the clouds, the horizons. I do not know, something, an experience which I had forgotten for many, many years. It came back to me, that great faith that nothing is going to happen. It does not matter even if it happens. Suppose it does not mean that nothing will ever happen. It can happen. But whatever may happen physically, this feeling or experience of consciousness, that remains ever an asset for us. Even if death has occurred, one can very well make a transit to the spheres beyond death, keeping intact this kind of equanimity and this kind of faith, because it is the property of what is eternal in us, what is immortal in us, which is our soul. The next aphorism is very much closely related to it. My soul knows that it is immortal, but you take a dead body to pieces and cry triumphantly, where is your soul and where is your immortality? In fact, there is a statement by one atheist, how he changed. He had a friend who always believed in soul. One day the atheist dragged the friend to a museum, biological museum, where what constitutes a human being, the elements are kept. Some earth, some water, some salt, some phosphorus, and some carbon. And the atheist asked his friend, this is what a man is made of. All the elements are captured in the bottle here. Where is soul? The friend does not answer. Why don't you answer? No, I don't want to answer. Oh, this is an escape. When you don't have an answer, you say, I don't want to answer. He said, look here. Why should at all I bother to answer you, who is nothing more than a bottle of water, a bottle of earth, a little bit of pinch of salt, a little of carbon, a little of phosphorus? If that is yourself, How do I bother to satisfy your query? Certainly, it is the soul which sustains. When death occurs, when the soul leaves the body. And you cannot dissect the body and find out the fact that there is no soul inside it. Other things are there. And that is where Mother says, you see, only the soul can know the soul. And on each level of being, only the equivalent level can recognize the other. You will see. Yes, I remember an Indian mystic story. There are two kingdoms. The frontier of the two kingdoms, it is a twilight time, sunset, under a tree. The jackal is sleeping, and an old man, bearded old man, is sprawling under the tree. And one person is going from this kingdom to kingdom A to kingdom B. He looks at this old man and says, "Oh, I understand who you are. You are a spy from the other kingdom. Just as I am going to that kingdom, you are coming to our kingdom. All right, have your luck." He goes. The second person comes, looks at the old man and says, "How much did you drink?" I have consumed a whole jar full. See, I am still steady, I can walk. How much you have drunk that you have fallen flat? He's a drunkard. He goes. The third person comes. "Oh, so you are also watching for night. You will enter our kingdom and steal some property. That's I'm going to the other kingdom." He's thinking. He's a thief. He's going to the other side of the frontier to steal something. The fourth one comes. He looks at this, says, this old man, goes near him, sits there, fans out insects from his body. After some time, the old man opens his eyes, smiles, and the young man takes him home. The young man understood that he is a sage who is under a trance. He is neither a spy, nor a drunk fellow, nor a thief. So he could know it because he himself had the knowledge of what trance is. So undoubtedly, it is the level at which we are. From that level, we read our circumstances, our environment, and our situations. How can we come back to the other, the preceding aphorism? How can we know the truth, objective truth of anything? As long as I live at a certain plane of my own consciousness, I am bound to observe everything, examine everything, and pass a judgment on everything according to the quality of the level of my consciousness. And these influences can be completely transcended if one has come in touch with the innermost property of our being, the soul, because the soul never makes a mistake. The soul is the only spark of God that remains within us. Others are also elements of divine, but distorted and perverted almost, and shrouded in falsehood. So this is the introduction to these two aphorisms. We can go on reflecting on them, a lot of treasures they contain. Before I fall silent, there's an announcement. Paranbabu, I'll make it. Our schedule has changed. This series, kindly take note of it. Of course, next week, Thursday, is 29th of February, the great day when Mother met Sri Aurobindo for the first time. So there will be a program in the evening. The notice is there. And Friday and Saturday, I will talk on thoughts and aphorisms. So 3 days are there, 3 evenings next week. But the week thereafter, I'll be able to take only 2 evening sessions, Friday and Saturday. Consecutive 2 days, please remember, all those who are interested to come. But this Saturday, there won't be any class. Kindly tell your friends whoever comes, and if he has not been able to come today, coming Saturday there will be no class. But next Saturday, 3, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thereafter, only Fridays and Saturdays. So you are exempted from attending one, coming here for one day, for this class at least. So thank you very much. Thank you.